Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chatham Airport Commission meeting of Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. The meeting is beginning at 5:01 p.m. This is a remote participation meeting only and will be live broadcast on Channel 18 pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16th, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Section 30A or Chapter 30A, subsection 20. Until July 15th, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Airport Commission is being conducted via remote participation only. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410 with the conference ID 842-513-877, followed by the pound sign. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. All right, let's take a roll call, make sure we've got a quorum and we can move ahead. So for roll call, please, I'm going to change things a little bit. I say your name here, okay, instead of just saying Commissioner Burke?
Yes, Burke.
Thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Commissioner Cortese here.
Commissioner Donovan, I know will not be joining us this evening. Commissioner Galen?
Commissioner Galen here.
Commissioner Hobeck? I think he's out of the country. Commissioner Owens? You got to unmute, Dave.
Commissioner Owens here.
And Commissioner Harrison here. Thank you, gentlemen. The first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes for two meetings. First, our April 13th regular meeting, and then the May 5th special meeting. So on April 13th, do we have a motion for approval of the April 13th minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. 413. Galen, Cortese. Okay. Is there any discussion on those meetings? Any additions, corrections, or deletions, or anything that anyone noticed might be? Okay. All right. And I'll take a roll call to approve the minutes of April 13th. Commissioner Burke?
Commissioner Burke, yes.
Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Commissioner Owens, yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. 5-0. Okay, and the minutes of the 5-5 meeting, do I have a motion to accept or approve the minutes of May 5th?
Motion to accept the minutes of May 5th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the special meeting? All right, hearing none. Vote to approve the minutes of the May 5th meeting. Commissioner Burke?
Commissioner Burke, yes.
Commissioner Cortese?
Commissioner Cortese, yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Commissioner Owens, yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any public announcements? please raise your hand and I will, or agenda item requests for the future. Okay, hearing none. We move on to public comments on new business items. Are there any public comments on new business items? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into the new business section. Commissioner reports. We'll start alphabetically from the top. Commissioner Burke.
Good evening. For the revolving fund, we received in the last month rental lease receipts of $3,273.34. There were no personal service expenditures. The year-to-date figure for that remains at $1,123.09. During this period, there were, for purchase of services, there was $11,147.77, bringing it year-to-date to $84,926.43. The hangar lease received $7,470, bringing the year-to-date to $41,597.11.
Okay. And in the revolving fund, if you all want to take a quick look at it, there are some things that will need to be reclassified. Some of them are already noted. They were put in the wrong slot a while ago. So the $2,100 debit is offset by a credit of the same amount. So that zeroes out. And there's another one down here on January 21st, $104.57. That's going to be reallocated to the proper account as well. So we're doing okay. I know there was a citizen last week who asked about the hangar leases and whether they were all up to date. And I can say right now that yes, they are all up to date, and I have not had to charge any late fees. So we are good to go with that. I've got some of the hangar lessees have paid in full. The majority, however, are good through the second quarter. So I think we're all set there. All right, Commissioner Burke, thank you very much. Commissioner Cortese, do you have anything for the good of the order?
None this month. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Galen?
Yes, Chairman Harrison, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about some of the advertisements that have appeared in the local paper in the last few weeks, as well as a postcard that was sent to Chatham residents from the West Chatham Village and Business Association. The concern is all of the ads and the postcard are basically filled with misinformation or actual incorrect information. And the issue is the information that is misleading, that is incorrect, can lead someone to think something would add to safety when it won't. And I'll be more specific. There is one of the first ads actually went after, started out by saying local airport officials are planning to turn Chatham's small plane airport into a busier commercial airport accommodating large turboprop passenger planes by clear-cutting 20 acres of trees, eliminating the bike path and damaging the wetlands. It's an interesting sentence since every single word within it is wrong. Not one of the plans that was made by this commission for the future of the airport would do anything to expand the commercial aspects and operations at the airport. There is no plan to clear cut 20 acres of trees. The bike path will be untouched in any of the plans that has been presented so far, period. And as far as being a small plane airport, which is a term that's bandied about, it's a term that's been made up. Chatham is not a small plane airport. Chatham is an airport with a 3,000-foot runway. As such, like every airport in the world, it was designed to accommodate any and all aircraft that can capably and safely utilize a 3,001-foot runway. That's how airports are designed, based on runway size and activity. And by the way, there is nothing we can do to bring more commercial aircraft into Chatham. The commercial aircraft that comes to and from Chatham does so because somebody wants them to. Somebody is paying them to come in here. They don't just show up to pick up passengers. They don't do it on a schedule like you do at a true commercial airport like Logan or Nantucket or TF Green in Providence. So we could build the Taj Mahal of airports. Not a single additional commercial flight would come in because of that. The facilities do not attract the planes. It is the user of the aircraft who's paying for it that attracts the planes. No, Chatham is not a small plane airport. There is no such thing as a small plane airport. It never was. It's a fallacious statement. It is. Now, specifically on safety, and this is where it's most concerning. Article 56, which they talk about in 2 of their ads, says, among other things, the FAA requires that dangerous runway ends should be free of people, structure, and roads. Well, the word dangerous is never used by the FAA in any of their advisories, in any of their circulars. Just isn't. And they don't require anything. That's another word, a term that is never used in any FAA documentation. The FAA has been here. They've seen our runway protection zones. And they've not told us to change anything within them. Future's a different story, but for what we have now, they've never told us to change anything. And by the way, the idea of displacing thresholds, which they talk about in these 2 ads as being a means of getting the runway protection zones either onto airport property or virtually onto airport property, doesn't do it. Because the takeoff runway protection zones would stay in exactly the same position they are in now. There would be no change, even if the runways are displaced, the thresholds are displaced as described in the advertisements. These are not dangerous areas, as they're trying to point out and tell the world. They're not. The FAA doesn't believe they're dangerous. They don't say they're dangerous. They don't say it in Chatham. They don't say it in Hyannis. They don't say it in New York City outside of LaGuardia or Los Angeles outside of LAX. Just not true. And as far as the other 2 ads, which address size of aircraft, again, they claim Chatham is designed for smaller planes only. And they purport that safety is the reason. And the community has the right to choose. Well, one, the aircraft that they're trying to eliminate, and they talk about it in these ads and show a picture of, actually has an excellent safety record. Potentially a better safety record than a lot of the small aircraft they allow. This bylaw, which they talk about in these ads, would not accomplish what they want to accomplish. And basically, the information within is misleading. Shorter runways, less runway equals less safety. It's a very simple physical fact. And it's just one of the things within the ads. The concern is how people will react to them. And I hope they really read them closely. And that's pretty much all I got to say tonight.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Owens. Unmute yourself.
I was just going to sing too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mike. I took a visit up to the Fisherman storage area this week and found that the new gate has been delivered and installation has started a little slow, I think, but they have one of the posts in and cemented in the ground. And hopefully it'll be be completed in coming days, weather permitting, and I'm not actually sure who's doing the installation. I took a ride around the storage area and observed a fair amount of usable gear that has been gotten ready to be fished, which was nice to see. And I also observed that a fair amount of the abandoned larger, mostly metal items have been removed up there. It's not to say there's still a lot of junk up there, but somebody's been busy and that was nice to see. And hopefully that can get cleaned up pretty soon. I know that we've been talking a little bit about future uses for that area, and the chairman will be doing a little presentation later in this meeting on one avenue that we might want to take. That's all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on anything so far before I do, I have some words to say? Okay. I see some hands up, but from the public, but I said at the beginning that if anyone has anything to say about the agenda, to speak then. If we have time at the end, I might take questions from the public. Just so everyone knows, the special meeting we had last Thursday, the commissioners reviewed and discussed Articles 56 and 57 that are citizen petition articles for the town meeting. We ultimately voted unanimously in opposition of both. The Chatham Select Board and the Chatham Finance Committee also have voted unanimously in opposition to both articles. I'm not going to speak directly to each article. I think Commissioner Galen did so earlier, but I will say that operational safety is our top priority and a key factor in decision-making, in the decision-making process of this commission. A shorter runway would decrease safety considerably for those on the ground as well as pilots and their passengers. Simply put, less runway equals less safety. Article 57 seeks to limit the aircraft, the type of aircraft that can operate at Chatham Airport. And like Article 56, attempts to set rules in areas specifically under Federal Aviation Administration jurisdiction. There have been opinions by both the town's legal counsel and the Airport Commission's Aviation Council, and they agreed that the warrants would violate federal preeminence in making such changes and setting such standards. If enacted, these articles would jeopardize safety at the airport and likely lead to legal action against the town by federal and state officials, as well as by private citizens who own aircraft and use the airport. Changes such as what are proposed by these articles, at the very least, call for a full evaluation of the trade-offs and consequences, as well as coordination with the FAA. Passage of the articles would be ill-advised, putting a strain on the town's resources, while potentially diminishing safety for those living near the airport and for pilots and passengers. That's all I have to say about that. So, any commissioners want to speak before we move on to the airport manager's report? Any questions, any comments, anything at all?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Cortese. Just have a couple.
Yes,
a couple
go
comments.
ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Just as an active pilot and one that has flown into airports with displaced thresholds very similar to the size of Chatham, and recently within the year, I just have to reinforce the excellent presentation that Commissioner Galen and that you had mentioned. And I know Chairman Harrison, you're a pilot as well. I think I mentioned it at the small meeting. Having a displaced threshold changes the mindset of the pilot. It does nothing for safety on the ground. It does nothing for safety on the ahead and or in the approach area ahead or the landing area behind. Because you're focused then on this point farther down the runway, which gives you less of
And let me ask you a question.
margin for error.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. On a displaced threshold, you really have to land right on the numbers, don't you?
Yes,
To
for
utilize
the most part.
the remainder of that runway safely.
To give you a safety buffer at the end of the runway, yes, to slow down. And to counteract, Chatham has there's a reason why we have a 100-foot wide runway. It's because Chatham has a lot of swirly crosswinds. And you typically aim from the beginning of the runway, but you're going to end up touching down at some point after.
Right.
If you then push it out where you're aiming a third of the way down the runway, it reduces the buffer. It forces you to come in slower. It forces you to come in with a little bit behind the power curve. I can expand on that if anybody has a question. But it's a much less safe approach coming towards the runway because you don't have any excess energy, which is a term we use in aviation as far as the energy in the airframe. And then as the rollout goes out, you don't have as much safety buffer to roll out. So if you get hit with a crosswind or something like that, you either have to make a split decision to go around or try to put the plane in the runway. And then it's all around not a good situation. The argument that they're trying to make is you have the full amount to take off. And that's true. Planes typically need less runway to land than they do to take off. But that being said, you want to have as safe as environment as possible.
Right.
And that's not going to change it. It's just going to make it worse because
Right.
people will still come in.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else before we move on to the airport manager's report? Commissioner Galen? Unmute.
I should have probably mentioned one thing in passing. We have talked to the FAA about displacing the runway thresholds, and they told us flat out, no, it's a non-starter. And the reason, simply safety. That's the whole reason. It's a safety issue. They do not shorten runways without very, very specific good reasons. They try to lengthen runways to increase the safety.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for those reports, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Let's move on to the airport manager report. Mr. Howard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. So before you there in your package, you should have the report. As always, number one item is our guard report for April of 2022. I'll go through the whole list here and then we can go back for questions if that's okay. So we have the guard report. Also attached again, we have an updated flyer for our June 11th Chatham Airport CQX open house event. A few changes to that, but everything else is the same date and time. Item number 3 attached, and it got a little screwed up in the package there, but Terry did fix it online and got out the correction. We have the updated airport emergency contact list, as well as the emergency plan and security plan. So we try to update these periodically. So we are submitting this here for the commission's review. Commissioner Galen already gave me an edit, which I had a spelling error on the emergency procedures about the vice chair title for himself and Commissioner Donovan's misspelling his last name. So I will fix that. That's on the 3rd page of that document. So those are submitted here for your review and approval. Also attached our annual airport equipment inventory and condition report, which if anyone has any questions on, I'm happy to answer. And also, we had not recently sent our internal phone complaint log since end of last season, so we attached that here to make sure we're up to date on that as well. So if anyone has any questions on any of those, I'm happy to answer them or go through them.
I do. Real quick. Are the complaint? I imagine the complaint logs are complete and up to date, right?
This is our internal phone complaint log. Typically, most of the complaints, obviously, that you've seen, we see are submitted via email or online or sent to the commission. These are just complaints of folks either coming in person or calling on the telephone because we have no other way to record them. So that's all we have since the timestamp there from last time we submitted, I think, was October of 2021. So this is starting in November to current.
Okay. So these are phone calls that you've taken or walk-ins?
Correct.
Okay.
And we, when if people do call and make a complaint, we always ask them, would you like to make a formal complaint? And if they do, then we will log it into forms. A lot of times the people just want more information and want to understand what's going on and then are satisfied generally. But if they do want to make a complaint, this is where it goes.
Okay. And just hang on just a sec. On the equipment, you have to keep, isn't this a requirement to keep this up to date on an annual basis? Semi-annual?
It's in the management agreement as update. I'm not sure if it says annually, but that's typically what we try to do is annually.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Galen.
Tim, a quick question about the complaint log.
Yes.
You mentioned in, I think it was 2 cases that you talked to the pilots about the Fly Friendly program.
Yes, we do.
What kind of reaction did the pilots give back to you when you talked to them, or whoever from your shop talked to them?
It's generally myself that does, the contacting of the pilots. In some cases, they aren't aware of it. In these cases here, all of them were apologetic and didn't know, or we're not purposely trying to cause a problem, but they're made aware, and generally there's no pushback unless, every once in a while you get somebody with an attitude, but it's fairly rare.
But by and large, there's no resentment or pushback from when you do talk to a pilot.
Generally, no. Generally, they apologize and say they didn't know, or if they did do it for a specific reason, then they explain why they did it, and we try to record that and take that into account. There's always 2 sides of these stories.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Howard? Okay.
I think you got Mr. Commissioner Owens there.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry.
I thought we were buddies.
Sorry.
Yes, I know that in talking with Tim recently, actually for a few months about the open house, he's used a lot of his resources and help at the airport, and a lot of volunteers, not only pilots that have contributed time and effort to advertise the open house. And he has a tremendous amount of displays this year, a lot more than last year. And it's just quite a lot of time and work involved in setting it up. But, when 2,000 plus people come walking through, it's a good time for young and old, just like the carnival. So a lot of people in town I've heard have spoken to me about being exciting for good weather, and a good time will be had by all. And I heard a rumor the Blue Angels are going to be there.
We wish. Yes, we're working hard on that. I've got a lot of help from pilots and non-pilots in the community, as well as family and staff. We're just keeping our fingers crossed for good weather, because that's the key to that whole event is good weather.
No, we'll all say a weather prayer.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, I need a motion to accept the airport manager's report.
So moved.
David Owens, thank you.
Second.
And I need a name of that. Was that Mike?
Yeah, Cortese.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had a motion and it's been seconded. Is there further discussion on the airport manager's report? Anything in there that you might want to get an answer to before we move on? Okay. In that case, Commissioner Burke.
Burke, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Cortese, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Galen
Commissioner Galen, yes.
and Commissioner Owens
Commissioner Owens, yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you very much. And moving on to the engineer's report, Mr. Karen.
Hey, good evening, Huntley, and good evening, airport commissioners. So over the last couple months, both Huntley and I have been meeting with all of the property owners that we believe may be affected by future tree clearing, or property owners, I should say, that have trees on their properties that we believe need to be mitigated from the airport's approach surfaces. And Huntley and I have walked each of these properties. We've looked at the trees that are in question, have spoken with each of the property owners. We understand their position with respect to either abrogation easements or the town coming and doing tree clearing, or in some cases them doing tree clearing, at their own expense and stuff like that. So I know that Huntley and I are working to set up a meeting with some town personnel to go over each of our conversations and discussions with each of these property owners. We will begin to put together some, options for the commission to consider in working with property owners. Those may include abrogation easements. It may include the town, doing some tree clearing at its own expense, or property owners doing clearing at its own expense. We're still working through those details and what exactly may happen. And like I said, it could be a combination of all three of those, or another solution that we haven't even thought of at this point. So, but the good news is, I think, Huntley, am I correct in saying we have met with every property owner at this point?
All but two.
There's all but two. Okay.
I've made contact with one of the two, but have not personally met with them on the property. And the other property owner, I have no idea.
There's one that you haven't been able to get a hold of. That's right.
Never responded, so I've got to figure out a way to contact them through some other means. We've sent 3 letters. The last one having a return postcard. It must be sitting in a mailbox. I don't know.
Right.
That's all. And the others we've had, as I said at the last meeting, and that hasn't changed very much, a cross-section of people, some who do not want an easement on their properties, others who welcome an easement, and some who are still a little bit on the fence about it, and people who don't know whether they want to take down their own trees or whether they actually do want an easement. But we'll have to go back to the ones that are, I guess you could say, on the fence, and talk to them and see what kind of arrangement we can make, which is part of our conversation with the town, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to just add to that, is as we continue to, formulate solutions and stuff like that, I think it's going to be an ongoing process and an ongoing dialogue with property owners until we actually come to, mutual agreements with folks. But, open dialogue, open communication, making sure property owners are aware of what it is that we're thinking or considering doing, I think is important. And I know Huntley's been doing a great job of doing that. So I appreciate the help, Huntley, with this project.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I've also been working with some tree people. We haven't put anything out to bid yet. We're not at that point. But I did ask one company for some ballpark figures so we could get an idea of what we're looking at. And they're actually, and they've sent me some, but they're editing some with regard to stump removal and what have you. So we're kind of tightening up on that. I would assume that company will probably be one of the bidders at one point, down the road, and is a state contract company. So he'll be right in the mix, I'm sure. And then we've got to put it out for public bid at some point. But that's down the road. Probably won't be till, I would say, midsummer. And we're looking for a start date I think once the ground gets hard.
Yeah, you would do tree clearing during frozen ground conditions or stable conditions for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. Commissioner Galen.
Matt, based on your experience, is this progressing the way you would expect, better, worse, or just normal?
I think probably what you would expect. I mean, there's always a mixed bag. Some folks that are apprehensive to, consider imposing a navigation easement or an easement of any type on their property. Certainly there's things like fair market value and compensation that's associated with that when you follow the FAA process. I would say there's been, I think, a lot of, eye-opening discussions with some property owners. They have a better understanding of what the airport commission's looking to do, why they're looking to do it, how the process works. And so I think it's progressing the way I would have expected. There's some folks that, I think frankly aren't ever going to be satisfied, with an easement, and then some folks that I think are a little bit more amenable to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Matt Karen? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the engineer's report.
So moved, Burke.
Thank you.
Second, Dave Owens.
Thank you. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded for the engineer's report. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, we'll move ahead with the roll call. Commissioner Burke.
Yes, Ted Burke.
Okay. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes, Cortese.
Okay. Commissioner Galen.
Commissioner Galen, yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Commissioner Owens, yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All right. Moving on to part D is more informational than anything else. And there's a slight correction in the time. The first topic workshop will have to do with basically what we were just talking about, obstruction removal and easements. This is not necessarily geared to people who've been listening to the Airport Commission over the last few months, but more toward people who might not know about it and want to hear about it. There will be a presentation by Mr. Karen. At that, we'll explain in detail the different options that are on the table for the average property owner. And the we'll have probably some good diagrams and things that we want to present to people so they know exactly what's happening. This will be a live meeting on June 16th, which is a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And it will be in the large meeting room in the annex over on George Ryder Road. I think it will not be a formal commission meeting. It will be a workshop. We will be listening to input and questions from citizens who want to find out more about what's happening. The one thing I don't think we're going to do is get into any kind of argument with people about the pros and cons of doing it. The tree removal has to happen. It's just a matter of how it happens and the most fair way we can do it. So I hope people put that on their calendar for June 16th, 4:30 to 6:30. The package that was put out, it has it at 5. Right now, 4:30 to 6:30 is what the time, as I remember it, is. And that, I think, keeps us well out of dinner hour. And I think we can do it. It'll be sharp stop at 6:30. So if there are any questions from any commissioners on that or anything that anyone wants to add or to that, I would appreciate it. We'll be getting more information out. Certainly our June meeting, we'll mention it again, and we will probably put something out in the press about it. Okay. Fisherman storage area update. I think Commissioner Owens covered this in his commissioner's report earlier, but if you would like to go ahead with that, and add anything to that, Dave, go ahead. If not, we'll just move on.
Do you want to talk about the weather balloon?
That's next.
Okay. No, I was, you know, unfortunately, it is what it is. It's nice to see it getting cleaned up, and I think the commission as a whole, regardless of the issues up there, just trying to get it cleaned up, but we have no ill feelings towards any of the renters or the fishermen, and we're hopeful that the town will find another area that'll be suitable for storage for them. That's
Right.
that's it.
Yeah, and I know the town's working on that. In fact, I think there's an article in the town meeting warrant about it. So I think they're making some progress there, and we're not going to be draconian about locking it up or anything like that. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape there. Okay, I see someone with their hand up. We're gonna wait till the end of the meeting.
Hey, Huntley, it's Stephen Daniel. I just thought I'd just give you a quick update on the storage area. The select board last evening endorsed an article for town meeting that would cap the spending at $200,000 on a new storage area on Middle Road between the transfer station and the water facility. The engineering proposals came in variously between $325,000 and $374,000.
Oh.
And it was, needless to say, got no traction. We had it today at the finance committee and voted to endorse as well the $200,000 cap, 6-0. So it will be moving forward at town meeting.
All right. Boy, that's going to be a Cadillac area. Thank you, Steve.
Pretty good deal for $600 a month.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Unless there's more conversation on the Fisherman storage area, we will move ahead to the Joint Airport Commission Finance Committee statement on the Fisherman storage area and possible plan for that area in the future. We put a report into the package for everyone to see with some explanations about what happens there, what goes on there. Unbeknownst to me, Stephen Daniel was researching this same topic, and we finally kind of stumbled across each other about a month ago and found out that both of us wanted to try to keep the balloon launch station, or what they call the Chatham Upper Air Station, in Chatham. It was closed in the Morris Island site because of beach erosion, and over the years it's been not only I don't want to call it necessarily a tourist attraction, but it was a place where people would go from time to time, take their kids to watch the balloons go up twice a day, once in the morning around 6 or so, and again in the evening about the same time. And more often, as I understand, through when there's stormy weather. And these balloons record various data points as they rise through the atmosphere and send it back to a receiving station. Most of the times, the balloons go off over the water, either out over the ocean to the east and southeast, or over Nantucket Sound more to the west. But probably now and then, but unusually so, probably more over Cape Cod Bay and then over land. You'll see in the description that they carry what is called a radio sonde, which is the item that sends back the data, and we just kind of hope that the National Weather Service and NOAA will be interested in following through with this. I think, Terry, do you have that slide that shows the former station at Morris Island that you could put up? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this was the station on Morris Island. Some of you who have been there will remember it. I found out the other day that the larger building, which I thought was just a former radome for a former weather station, was actually part of the balloon launch operation. So I was interested to see that. So and this little building on the right housed some of the equipment that they used for the balloons and the equipment they need to launch the balloons. I see Mike Ryder is on, and Mike, can you elaborate on that a little bit for everybody?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here. So Huntley was correct. The building on the right, the little one, is a modular building that was used that was the office. It's where we baseline the radio sondes. We had all the flight computers in there. And that's where, once the balloon was released, we would monitor the flight. The inflation building, the bigger one to the left, does have the radio sonde in the top. Excuse me, the receiver in the top. In the lower portion, behind the garage door, there's one on the west end too. That is where the balloon was inflated. Now these balloons once they're inflated, are 6 feet in diameter to begin. And so we would inflate the balloon inside the building, and then depending on the wind direction, we'd open the door and carry it outside for the release. There was a little bit of storage on the left-hand side of the building, and that shed was actually part of the Fish and Wildlife.
Okay. Thank you. And by the way, Mike didn't say, but he used to be one of the balloon launchers. So I hope he's interested in getting back into it if we can get this. The update that I have, I've been working with the National Weather Service and NOAA, and what we're hoping to do is get a site visit from NOAA. I'm waiting to hear back. I've been in contact with them, and I'm waiting to hear back about a date for the site visit. They seem interested. I know they want to see the site to see if it's suitable. We've sent them the pictures of the aerial photographs of the Fisherman storage area, and we think that it might be a viable option for them. And I got positive feedback from them. The other piece of this is the FAA and the approval by the FAA. I talked to George Pantelli, who is the land use compliance officer for the FAA in this region. And he said he saw no problem with it. The only thing that we need to do, and he's arranging this right now, is a meeting with the Cape Tracon, which handles air traffic in this area, and to find out, what they're going to say about it. I suggested to George Pantelli that this is an activity that could be NOTAM'd, which is a notice to airmen as to the times of launches, and that aircraft coming into Chatham or departing from Chatham should know that at those times a balloon will be in the traffic pattern for probably no more than a minute, if that. I mean, the balloons go up very fast once they get air and or catch the air, I should say, and they're at 1,500 to 2,000 feet, probably within 30 seconds or maybe a little more, probably not much more, but they go. So I don't think that will be necessarily a problem, but in terms of air traffic and the approach and departure routing for aircraft into Nantucket and also into Hyannis could be an issue. But again, I'm hoping that if this is NOTAM'd properly with the times, that it won't be a problem. I mean, we did have skydiving here. Not that I'm advocating for that at all, but I'm saying that was something in the air that was coming down through those approach paths and departure paths, and that was NOTAM'd. So I think it's something that could be possible, and it would. I think historically it would be nice to have in Chatham. So I'm going to turn this over briefly to Stephen Daniel, who came up with the idea of a joint letter to the select board between the finance committee and the airport commission to see what if the select board could write a letter and support this with the FAA and with NOAA. So Stephen, if you're there, there you are.
I am here.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Huntley. I guess by means of background, I'm a bit of a weather geek. I keep precipitation and evapotranspiration data on a daily basis that gets up to the National Weather Service. And as a kid, used to be one of those guys who would go up and watch the balloon launch, and every now and then they let me hold the electrical conduit in the bottom of the radio sound and jerk it as the balloon lifted off. So I've always had a bit of a fondness for the station up there. And it struck me for several reasons as incredibly disappointing to learn that it was going to be closing, whether it's just having that federal presence in town, whether it's the whole, science nexus to Chatham, the continuity of data. And so probably on a half a dozen occasions over the past year since CHH closed, I've badgered the select board, typically in response to some stimulus, an article in the paper or whatnot, about trying to retain these jobs and trying to retain this presence. Didn't get a lot of traction. And then I did learn somehow that Huntley was thinking about the same thing, and we decided to join forces and take advantage of the opportunity that's potentially presented by the Fisherman storage area. The thought was, and the finance committee voted unanimously to support the idea of drafting a letter jointly with the airport commission for presentation to the select board, just to give them a little bit of a boot. I think a formal expression from the town of Chatham of interest in this facility, of retaining or reopening this facility, could potentially help the cause. So that's the intent. See if we can draft a letter. I've begun the framework of one. I've got the authority from the committee just to go ahead and do it with Huntley without having to revert the form of the letter back to the committee for approval. So that would be our interest, to see if we can join up with you guys and present some impetus to the select board to make a formal expression of interest in NOAA and to the National Weather Service to try to get CHH back here. I would point out to Huntley's comments about NOTAMs. There are, and Mike can correct me, I think there are 92 stations in North America and the Pacific that launch radiosondes on a daily basis, 12 of which are at commercial airports, typically regional in the United States. And obviously it goes without saying that we've been throwing balloons up there for 50 years out on Morris Island without incident. So that's, I think that's the background, Huntley.
Okay, thanks very much. I think even though it's not in the agenda, but I think I'd like someone to make a motion to support this effort with the finance committee. And so we can move ahead and get that letter put together for the select board. So if someone could make a motion on that, I would appreciate it.
Ted Burke, so moved.
Okay,
Commissioner Owens, second.
thank you. All right. All right, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Burke?
Ted Burke, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Commissioner Galen, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Owens
Commissioner Owens, yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. And so,
Perfect. Thank you guys very much. I'm gonna hop off.
okay, well, you and I
Yeah.
will get together offline and craft a letter and we'll be all set.
All right, that sounds great.
And I'll
Mike,
let you
really
know how
appreciate your help
things
and
go
support
with-
on this as well, and look forward to continuing to work with you and Huntley.
Yep, thank
Thank
you.
you,
And
Steve.
I'm gonna keep you in the loop with regard to the Cape Track-On.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay, good
Good night,
enough.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. I appreciate it. The last thing on our agenda is we need a vote to authorize the chair to execute state grant assurances for the ASMP project number 2022 CQX-07, which is the crack sealing project for the runway, apron, and taxi lane that is, we just need to approve this so that the state will pay for it, essentially. So I need a motion on that, please.
I move approval of the state grant assurances as outlined in the agenda package,
Okay, and you authorize the chair to execute that.
and authorize the chair to execute same.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a second?
Burke, second.
Burke, second. Thank you. Any discussion on that?
One quick question. Is
Yep.
this a program that's 90% federally funded and only in 5 state,
So
5
this is
local?
all state,
It's all state, okay.
all state money. So I believe it's, if Mr. Karen's still there, I know he had to go somewhere, but if he's still there, I think it's an 80-20.
Hey, Huntley, still here. Yeah, I do believe that's an 80. Typically, the ASMP projects are at an 80-20 split, unless there's some other arrangement that you have made that I'm unaware of. But yes, 80-20, I think, is correct.
Okay,
Thanks,
Yep.
Matt.
all righty. Thank you very much. All right, let me get a roll call. Commissioner Burke,
Burke, yes.
Commissioner Cortese,
Cortese, yes.
Commissioner Galen,
Commissioner Galen, yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Commissioner Owens, yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the agenda for the meeting. I will, since we are a little early, I will entertain questions from the public or comments. I see Renee Haas. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. I just wanted to, make one comment, which I'm hoping will be a correction for the record, and it just refers to Commissioner Galen's discussion of ads in the paper, and I'm assuming that he's referring to ads that were funded by the West Chatham Village and Business Association, but he mentioned that it was all the ads. And just for the members of the public, I think there were some ads that were placed that opposed the articles, which is consistent with the commission's position. Thank you.
Renee, I did mention that the ads I spoke about were all West Chatham Village and Business Association funded and prepared. The
Okay,
specific ones I addressed.
thank you. I probably just missed it, but I just want to make sure that,
Okay.
that was in the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have another hand, Dana Quinn.
Thanks, Chairman Harrison. For those that don't know me, my name is Dana Quinn. I have 3 short comments. I won't make them very long. I'd like to piggyback on Commissioner Galen's ads that he was speaking of that have a lot of misinformation in them. The most recent one I received has something in it that says voting yes for Article 56 is an FAA solution for a safer Chatham airport. And I'm not sure that the FAA has ever come out with first of all, that there even is a problem at the Chatham Airport. And certainly I haven't seen anything in writing or otherwise that says voting yes for Article 56 is an FAA solution sanctioned by the FAA. So I just wanted to clear that up. And I also wanted to speak to Commissioner Cortese's displaced thresholds by adding that there's probably not a pilot that's flying in the US or any place else that can even identify where the runway protection zones are. I'm hearing a lot of discussion about the RPZs over the last few years, and it would be my guess and 33 years of airline flying experience that's when I go into Los Angeles, I couldn't tell you where the runway protection zone is for LAX, nor Singapore, nor Vietnam, nor Tokyo, nor any other airport that I've been to in my career. That's something that's all done behind the scenes. And I just need to make that distinction and emphasis. And I just want to let anybody that's watching this on Channel 18 in Chatham, as well as the folks that are joining the team meeting right now, that I will be at the Chatham landfill from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon with flyers. And if there's anybody in the town of Chatham that's listening to this, I would be more than happy to entertain any questions that they have on what this is all about. I do not speak for the Airport Commission. I speak for myself. And if anybody needs to know what I think is the truth, and they're more than welcome to come and talk to me. I will see them from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon at the Chatham landfill. Thanks very much for your time and keep up the good work.
I have a question. Commissioner Galen has a question.
Dana, just
sure, Mike, go ahead.
One point, the FAA has said exactly the opposite of what's in this ad. I mentioned that passage of it would decrease safety. So calling it an FAA solution obviously is counter to what the FAA believes is the safest means.
Right, and I just don't want people to think that that's just you toting the company line here. I want to have an independent, I just wanted to throw in my independent opinion on this. It's not an opinion, it's the truth. The FAA has never said that Article 56 is a solution for a safer Chatham Airport. And I just need to put that out there. It's just not true. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your help.
Don't go away. I've got a question for you. As you've flown into some of these airports around the world, around the country.
Yes, sir.
As you approach some of those airports, whether you know the RPZ location or not, do you find any of the off-airport ends of the runway crowded with businesses or houses or developments or anything like that in your experience?
Well, I do because, yes, most of the larger airports in the world, like Los Angeles, for one, Singapore is out on an island somewhere, so that definitely doesn't do it. But anybody flying into Logan, depending on what runway you're landing on, you're flying in right over the city or taking off right over the city of Boston. Depending on what runway they are, all you have to do is look out the window and see what kind of, that's why they don't build skyscrapers at the end of the runway. They design runways or stop people from building skyscrapers at the end of the runway.
Right.
Yes, Tokyo is just jam-packed full of people and houses and things like that. So yes, in answer to your question, there are quite a few major airports around the world that are built right in the middle of cities, and the cities build up around them. It's not they clear the land and put the airports in later after everybody's settled in there.
Right. Yeah, I think that, unfortunately for Chatham, and I've said this before, that the over the course of the last 40, 50 years, things weren't done that probably should have been done, and now it's basically too late. So I think what we're trying to do by introducing the overlay district zoning bylaw, I think is the best solution to continue safety, not only at the job lot end of runway 6, but at the other, at the Agnes Lane end of runway 24. And I think by limiting development, we're not saying that we're canceling development, we're limiting development in those areas, will be certainly more or less keep the status quo and not make it any more dangerous than it is now, if it is dangerous, and it probably isn't. But keeping it, I guess a better way to say it would be to keep it as safe as it is now, if not safer. So
I couldn't agree more, Chairman Harrison. And my last comment, and then I'll get off the line here. I used up my 3 minutes, but moving RPZs will have no effect on how a pilot flies his approach into Chatham. All it's going to do is cause him to have to slam on his brakes a little bit harder, and it's going to cause problems at the other end of the runway trying to get stopped in time because you've shortened the runway by more than 25%. I don't see it in LAX. I don't see it in Tokyo. I don't see it in Singapore. They just don't do that because airliners need long runways to stop. Little airplanes do too. If you shorten the runway by half, all you're doing is making it less safe for everyone around, including folks on the ground and my passengers in my little four passenger airplane.
thank you. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see, I've got another hand here. Mr. Haas?
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. I just wanted to add one very, quick and simple note to what Dana Quinn, just said, which is we don't need to look any further than Hyannis or, now called Cape Cod Gateway Airport. I'm sure that, everyone in this meeting, as well as anyone that might be listening, has been on Route 28, going, towards heading towards the Rotary there, right next to the airport. And you're basically right next to the airport. And when you look to your left, you see shopping centers, and behind that, you see homes and so forth. And because of the fact that, you have a longer runway with jets, that are departing and taking off, that runway protection zone has to be and is much larger. So you don't have to go far to see, a simple example where you've got an airport right close to us where you have much bigger problems with the RPZ, and still you really have a safe environment. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate it. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Harrison. Just to touch real quick on what Mr. Quinn said, and then Mr. Haas said, and what all of us have said. In a lot of, this is more in having an airport within a densely populated area. A lot of the airports in Florida are smack dab right in the middle of densely populated areas. At night, you have to shoot the instrument approach in because you can't tell where the runway is versus where the houses and the street lights and everything, because everything's a grid a lot of times in Florida. If you think about LaGuardia, you think about Teterboro is another one. There are airports that are right basically down in the middle of densely populated areas, and a lot of those are a lot of the airports in Long Island as well, where the airports were out in the middle of nowhere in the beginning, and then development came in around the airport. That's not necessarily the case with Chatham, but certainly, as your point was, we could have restricted the development on either side, and I believe adding the RPZs on either side will help that keep the height down for a safer airport. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's not in this town meeting, but I think because it's a zoning bylaw, it'll have to come up at another meeting. But we're still going to pursue that and hope that it could get passed at some point. So, all right. I don't see any more hands from the public, and I think we've reached the end of our meeting. If there's anything for the good of the order before we adjourn, someone, Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just a couple of quick questions to back up a little bit. So this weather balloon launching site, who would be footing the bill to put the buildings up?
Noah?
And I'd like to maybe tag along when you view the site, maybe,
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if maybe we should consider if this all goes through to put, maybe put some parking up there for people that might want to go up and observe it, or maybe get another location on the airport closer to a road so people can observe it.
Well, yeah, I mean, these are all part of the conversation. It's basically an open book right now.
Right.
Noah could come up and look at that and say, no, it's not going to work for us. The Cape Tracon could look at it and say, nah, we don't really like it, but at least we're pursuing it, and I think it's a good use of that area. Not that it's the only use of the area, but it's a good use of the area.
Yeah, I think the airport property is a good spot for it, and hopefully it's not going to wash into the sea anytime soon. So, anyway, no, it sounds like a good idea.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Commissioner Galen, yeah?
To follow up on Dave's questions or comments, I take it they'll be paying rent, Noah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not a freebie.
No.
No, they paid, actually, I believe, well, let's see, they were on federal land over there on Morris Island. So I don't know. Mike Ryder, you still on? I don't see him. Okay. Well, I do believe they did pay something, but definitely they'll pay something for us at fair market value. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the last thing is I'd like to urge all of the commission members to come Saturday to town meeting. We need every vote we can.
And if it carries over to Sunday, please kind of earmark that as well. And, feel free to stand up and speak. I'll be speaking with regard to all three articles, 7, which is on the revolving fund, and 56 and 57. Frankly, I won't have too much more to say. It's like beating a dead horse almost, but we still need to say things, and we still need to make our voices heard. So anyway, so next up is Saturday. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let me just write something down. MG and MC. Okay. All right, roll call. Commissioner Burke.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Commissioner Owens, yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you for your help this evening and your comments and advice. We appreciate it. Terry, thank you very much. And Channel 18, thank you all very much. And thank you to the public for your